SeatGeek is the easiest way to find the best deals on tickets to pretty much any live event. Concerts, sports, theater, comedy, whatever you want. Download the SeatGeek app today and enter promo code SEATS to save $20 on your first purchase.
Welcome back to the Sports Beat KC podcast. This is Jesse Newell, KU beat reporter for the Kansas City Star. I'm joined once again this week by CJ Moore of the Athletic and Bleacher Report, live from his car. CJ, how you doing?
Good. On my way up to Lincoln, driving through beautiful Kansas City, Missouri right now.
Heading over. Well, as you guys know, KU is about to take on Nebraska, and CJ is heading up there to talk to a little bit of Tim Miles and see how KU performs in this game. But we're going to talk a little bit about the state of KU basketball as it relates right now. The Jayhawks have now lost 2 games in a row after losing to Washington at Sprint Center, lost to Arizona State at Allen Fieldhouse. CJ, I know you were at the game against Arizona State. You kind of wrote your own piece about that, so you can talk a little bit about that. But what do you see from the Jayhawks right now, and I guess what do you see what do you foresee for them moving forward? Is this a real reason for panic for Jayhawk fans?
Oh, man. Well, the sun keeps coming out, so that's a positive. But, no, I mean, I think there's issues with this team right now. I mean, we can't deny that at all. You just lost to, the Washington loss was a bad loss. Arizona State loss has been terrible, but that's just, you shouldn't give up, 95 points at Allen Fieldhouse. Those things just don't happen. And while Arizona State has a fantastic offense and they've been scoring at a pretty high rate all season, I think they definitely, showed some issues with the Kansas defense, the ability to keep the ball in front of you, the ability to guard the three-point line, which I think you've written about. Were just too many easy – like room and rhythm threes, just letting guys get off, too easy a shots. And I think it comes down to, one, their defense is kind of built to try to, they should be pressuring up on the perimeter and funneling guys to Udoka Azubuike. And I think because he's gotten in foul trouble some and because he knows that he cannot get in foul trouble, his ability as a rim protector is kind of inhibited because he's not, he's almost like it's like a guy who's got the yips and putting, or a shooter who's just going through a confidence thing, like kind of like Speed's doing on the offensive end. I think Udoka might have like some defensive yips right now, and I pointed out in my story that his block rate is about 5% lower. I think, Jesse, isn't that right, from last year?
Yeah, it's almost half. I looked that up and actually wrote a story about it today too. That his block rate was 12.8 last year in his 11 games, and this year through 9 games it's 7.0. So
so similar sample size
and similar competition too, because he played these teams in the preseason. Yeah,
for sure. So minutes are probably up a little bit, but still, that's there's the last year was 2 more games, so it's probably about a similar number of minutes, I would guess. And so anyway, I think that he needs to maybe be a little better, and obviously the guards need to pressure up on the perimeter and then keep guys in front of them. And Arizona State's a really, really hard team to do that, but Washington gave them some issues as well. And I don't think Washington's going to score a bunch of points against people this year. So definitely some defensive issues, and I think offensively you're seeing this team is just so reliant on 3 guys, with Gerald Vick, Devontae Graham, and Svi Mikhailuk. And when one of those guys or 2 of those guys are kind of off, I think that the offense is hurt. And, I wrote about how I think they look to, early in that second half against Arizona State, you could see there was a priority to get the ball inside, whether it was throwing it to Udoka or driving. And when they threw it into Udoka, he didn't quite have his post-up game going in that particular contest. And I don't know that he's ready for like a huge workload yet, just where he is. And like we've talked about it, I think he's farther along in his timeline than I thought he would be. But still, I don't think he's like a high-volume guy yet. He's just better finishing off lobs, getting your occasional post-up, that kind of stuff. And then, this team has just not driven the ball well. And when they drove it against Arizona State, they got blocked several times there early in that second half. And their free throw rate is incredibly, incredibly low. So it's, kind of the issues we've been talking about and worried about all year with them not having Frank Mason and Josh Jackson anymore to go get easy buckets that way. It's when this team's not hitting three-pointers, what's the offense look like? What are they going to do? How are they going to figure that out? And I think they're in a point right now where they're searching.
I want to talk about the offense, CJ, because there's been a lot made of it. Bill Self spoke to reporters yesterday just saying, hey, look, guys, I love to play four guards as much as anybody, but I like averaging 24 to 25 free throws a game compared to 10. And some guys need to get better at that. You mentioned the free throw rate. KU's free throw rate is second worst in the nation. Yet I look at the numbers, and, KU is right now 16th in offensive efficiency. And, yeah, you want it better than that, and it can be better than that. But I just wonder how concerned you are with the offense, because when I look at it, I see some positives. I see some things that are being done well, but yet there are some rather glaring negatives that can be fixed over time. But I'm not sure if I'm ready. I think the freak out to me would be more defensively than offensively, even though those numbers haven't been hurt as much in recent games. But I just want to kind of get your take on the offense, how much of a concern you think that is. You talked about the three-pointers, you talked about the free throw rate. Is that enough to drive KU's offensive value down to a point where you think that it's not sustainable and you don't think that this team can be successful like years past?
Yeah, I think they're kind of a boom or bust offense in a way. Like, when they're hitting, they're going to look awesome this year. And it's kind of similar to Florida. Like, Florida's looked unreal in some games, and they're very reliant on their perimeter guys and hitting outside shots. But they've lost to some really bad teams, too. Not to say Arizona State is bad, but, Washington's probably not very good. They went to play to Gonzaga and got smoked right after playing KU. So, I think that when those shots aren't falling, you don't really have another pitch. You don't have necessarily a way to score consistently. And you kind of scoffed at it last week when I mentioned, against Power 5 teams, their offense hasn't looked great. Well, there was another game. Granted, they did score, 85 points in that game?
85 points, 1.1 points per possession. Yeah, 1.1 points per possession.
But they definitely had a stretch in that second half where they were really struggling to score. And in the past, kids like that, you can just maybe throw it to Frank Mason and he can kind of get you through that time. Or you can throw it to a post guy and he can you can just – there's a way for Bill Self to manufacture baskets where this year it's just like they're so reliant on three. And you do want to see them a couple straight games against like Power 5 teams actually score at a high level, because most of their point production, the high points per game or points per possession they've put up this year, which they put up some incredible numbers, they've come against teams that are mid-major level teams. So you do kind of want to see them now. Okay, what can you do against a Power 5 team? And this weekend's an opportunity. Nebraska, while offensively they're not great, defensively they've got some weapons, they've got some length, they've got some size, and they really do a good job of running teams off the three-point line. They're kind of like the man version of Washington, and I'd say the talent level is probably pretty similar to Washington as well.
Here's something interesting, CJ, I want to get your take on, because I was just kind of perusing the numbers here. And, again, we're talking about KU being 16th in offensive efficiency right now. As we know in basketball, there's the four factors of basketball and kind of the four things that make up what your offense and your offense and defense are. There's shooting, there's turnover percentage, there's offensive rebounding percentage, there's free throw rate. And we also know from Dean Oliver's studies, shooting is most important, turnovers are second most important, rebounding is third most important, and free throw rate is fourth most important. I was kind of trying to look and see who's similar to this Kansas team. And let me just read off these numbers to you. Here's Kansas compared to 2016 Iowa State with your boy George Niang, okay? Effective field goal percentage, KU is 6th nationally. That Iowa State team was 5th. Turnover percentage, KU is 49th. Iowa State was 30th. Offensive rebounding, KU's 171st. That Iowa State team was 281st. And free throw rate, KU's 350th. Iowa State was 349th. That Iowa State team ended up 7th in offensive efficiency. So, again, it's just kind of jaw-dropping to me. We've talked all the time about how has Iowa State built up these offenses under Fred Hoiberg that have been just as good as KU's offenses, or in this case, Steve Prohm in his first year at Iowa State. How have they been able to kind of compete with KU offensively? It's by playing the style, and it's amazing to me in the course of 2 years that KU has completely changed its whole course of offense so much that I'm saying KU's offense almost is an identical replica of Iowa State's offense 2 years ago. How crazy is that?
Yeah, I mean, it basically comes down to personnel, and this is how they have to play with who they have. And it makes it so important that they get another big guy who maybe brings them a little more offense, hopefully Billy Preston, because they don't really have a changeup. And, that Iowa State team, while they were super reliant on three, they had a dynamic playmaker inside in George Niang who you could throw it to you could throw it to anywhere. And KU doesn't really have a guy like that anywhere close to that. I mean, Billy Preston would probably be the closest guy on the roster to that. He's not nearly ready to take on that kind of role, I don't think. But they need more weapons. They definitely need more weapons than what they currently have. It is very, very difficult, and you're seeing this, to have 7 scholarship players and play at a consistent high level. I mean, it's just a really, really hard thing to do. So I think it's so important that they get more bodies, and we still don't know. I mean, we'll see Sam Cunliffe this weekend, but I know you got kind of an update, sort of, yesterday on the status of the two big guys. So kind of where do you see that, Jesse? I mean, what if you had to bet some money on those two guys, take each as an individual, where do you kind of see it right now?
Well, the update from Bill Self on both of them was this. With Billy Preston, he did say that he was optimistic that it could have something turn out in KU's favor in a positive way. But it's funny to me, kind of the feedback I get from people is like, how could it take this long? How could KU's investigation take this long? Because Bill Self said that whatever KU had found and what their findings were had not been sent to the NCAA yet. I mean, it seems like, and again, I don't have inside knowledge of this, but it seems like people are answering their own questions. You know what I mean? Like, if it's taken 2 months to figure out the financial situation with this car and investigate that fully, then something's going on. You know what I mean? It's pretty obvious by now that something's not right with what happened with Billy Preston and the situation of him driving around the car. So it sounds like Bill Self is optimistic that at least that KU believes that there's a case for him to play the rest of this year. Otherwise, they could, if they had his best interest in mind, if they didn't think he was going to play, they probably would just say, hey, Billy, look, you have professional options elsewhere. You can go play basketball here or there and help out your pro future. The fact he's still with Kansas and practicing with them, I think that's a positive sign for KU. And at least publicly, you would think in the next week or so, KU will come forward with what they have found and their findings and say, hey, it's in the NCAA's hands now. And with that, you would think they might kind of put the NCAA's feet to the fire a little bit to say, okay, this is what we found. We took 2 months to investigate this. Now it's your turn to kind of speed up this process and figure out what the final ruling should be with him. As far as Silvio De Sousa goes, supposed to maybe know his test scores by this week. That's what he said on Twitter. If he does pass the SAT, Bill Self said there's still some clearinghouse issues, which kind of like a similar case with Sheikh Diallo, where you have to go back to the African country and figure out, okay, what translates over. Is this course good enough to be counted as good coursework for the NCAA Eligibility Center? Only this case, it's Angola. So KU has to get some people in there that speak French or Portuguese, all this stuff. Listen, they've got people to do that. So Bill Self said there might be a few more hoops to jump through, but the bottom line with it is going to be the biggest thing is the standardized test score. If he passes that, he'll likely be with KU. Now, they want him sooner rather than later. Could there be some eligibility stuff with Angola that pushes it back a few more weeks than they want? There could be, but I think if that SAT score passes, he'll be at KU at some point. The problem with that is you want him as soon as possible if you're Bill Self, because he's got to learn the whole offense, and that's going to be very difficult for him to do mid-season.
Yeah, quick rant. It's so ridiculous, all those kind of loopholes you have to go through in that situation. I feel like if a kid's able to get accepted to a university and the university accepts him, then that should be good enough for the NCAA.
Jay Billis has made that point a lot, which is basically like, hey, if the college accepts you, that should be good enough for you to get into college, and there shouldn't be another layer of thing you have to go through. But go ahead, continue with your point.
And then with Preston, one way to look at this could be that, okay, he sat out enough games. It looks like it's an impermissible benefits situation, right? Like that's
Absolutely.
the most likely scenario here.
Yes.
And in those situations, in the past with guys, depending on the level of it, the NCAA says, okay, you did this, we're going to ding you this many games, and okay, here you go. So in KU's situation, they could be like, all right, based off past situations, similar situations, so-and-so sat this many games, all right, we're going to hand it over to the NCAA about this time, and, they'll see Billy's, we've penalized Billy, he sat out this many games, and hopefully, in their situation, they're thinking, all right, he sat out this many games, we've done everything he's supposed to do to get back, so I'm sure that's how they're thinking of it. Okay, hopefully it's a quick and speedy process for the NCAA because they have everything they need, and that's kind of what I gather from listening to the quotes from Self yesterday is that's kind of his hope. Would you have similar kind of thoughts to that, Jesse?
Yeah, well, and I mean, let's give you a little peek behind the curtain here. I mean, let's just be brutally honest. KU has lawyers working on this. You know what I mean? Like, whatever the KU compliance department found and returned to KU Athletics, which the KU compliance department, is part of KU Athletics but operates separately from them. So basically, like, Bill Self can't poke his nose in on the investigation and say, hey, what's going on? I don't think you should investigate that. So, like, they stay separate. But once the KU compliance department has its findings and KU Athletics knows that, then they go to their legal counsel or whoever there is, and they start to figure out, okay, like you said, how many games should he sit out? What are similar cases in the past? How to best, I guess, phrase it or make it look, you know what I'm saying? Like all these sorts of things to get Billy Preston eligible because, that's obviously a big part of this KU roster for the rest of the year is getting him available and eligible. So, like you said, they're getting their case ready to say, hey, NCAA, here's what we found. Here's what it's similar to. Here's what it is most similar to. Here's what that person sat out. And here's what we suggest happened with Billy Preston. And the fact that Bill Self has continued to say he's optimistic makes me believe that their case that they're presenting or getting ready to present to the NCAA basically would be a resolution that would have Billy Preston playing very soon. Does that all make sense?
Jesse, yeah. You know why this is taking so long? They're going the UNC route, which is, the UNC kids, it was, other students were taking the same class. What KU had to do was they had to go get the same car
and buy
that Billy was driving for every other student on campus and say, hey, everybody at KU is driving this car.
Well, and again, this is not to be negative and it's not to be critical because the point you're making with UNC is exactly what I'm talking about. UNC hired some great lawyers, and they found the loopholes, and they found that, and the NCAA didn't have much punching power in the end because of all of the legal work that UNC was able to do. So I would envision
they took their time on that UNC deal.
Yeah, I would envision behind the scenes that KU is having a similar process go on that people are trying the best way possible to make a case that Billy Preston should be available later this season and that he has already served the punishment for his crime.
I would think that if he hasn't left in the next 2 to 3 weeks, like, okay, so now he's finished first semester. If he hasn't left in the next 2 to 3 weeks, they feel like they got a pretty good shot that he'll play at some point. Because after he finishes the first semester, if they don't think he's going to play, like you said, go play in the D League, go overseas, or do something. Your NCAA eligibility is shot because of whatever X thing you did. So it's fascinating, and we're here in mid-December, and we don't know what this KU roster is going to look like in a month, and it's just such a bizarre season.
Yeah, even Bill Self doesn't. And also, if KU does come public and say, hey, we've sent this to the NCAA, we're awaiting word, then it starts to become a Chuck Diallo-like situation. If you remember what happened with that, CJ, KU was basically openly, and Bill Self was openly kind of challenging the NCAA to say, hey, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right. And then you saw some national media members pick up on it, Jay Billis. There starts to be some public support against the NCAA, and then maybe you start to force a resolution a little bit quicker. We're not at that point yet because of Bill Self saying that they haven't turned their case over to the NCAA yet, but that also could be possible down the line. It is fascinating, and Sam Mellinger wrote about this yesterday. I'd encourage people to go check it out on kansascity.com, but how this year is just a little bit different. And Bill Self right now, the roster crunch that he has, it's kind of weird because, he didn't envision it this way, and the Billy Preston thing is something unforeseen, but it also is sort of his own doing. If you look back at some of the people that they could have had They missed out on some recruits last year, and because of that, they decided to take some very talented transfers. But those transfers aren't available this year, so that helps them in 2018, 2019, but it leaves them a little bit in a scholarship crunch in 2017-18. So you do that along with, Carlton Bragg left the program, Jack Whitman left the program, Dwight Colby was available, and he left the program, decided to go to Western Kentucky. And all of a sudden, you're left, like you talked about, with the 7 scholarship players when Billy Preston's out, and then also this glut of 2 and 3 players in there. We talk about Sam Cunliffe, but he's like what they already have. He's the Svi Mikhailuk. He's LaGerald Vick. What he does best is kind of something it's kind of redundant. So they're very short on point guards, Devontae Graham, and that's basically it. And they're very short on 5s, Udoka Azubuike, and that's basically it. I wrote a story today about, in the last 2 games, there's been 4 different instances where Bill Self has checked out Udoka Azubuike and checked him back in within 2 minutes. And 3 of those times were within a minute of each other just because he has no other options. He has to go to him even if he's frustrated with him. So this roster crunch is kind of created by the GM, who is Bill Self, but it kind of took a bunch of different things happening to have all these sorts of things fall through. Billy Preston, Sam Cunliffe, Silvio De Sousa, they all could help Kansas coming down the line. Like you said, only one of those guys for sure, though, is going to be with KU second semester.
Yeah, and if you get both of those guys, you're in a much better number situation then. You got 9 scholarship players. You have plenty of wings. You're still probably short of point. You probably like one more point guard, but you can figure it out a little bit easier because then you can play 2 bigs at sometimes and play 3 perimeter players, so there's not such a need to play 4 perimeter guys all the time. So that gets more rest for your perimeter guys. You get more rest for your big guys. You bump Mitch Lightfoot down to only having to play the 4, which I'm sure there's probably some KU fans that are riding Mitch Lightfoot right now and frustrated with him. But
not his fault.
Mitch Lightfoot is playing exactly probably how he should play. He should come in. He should be an energy guy, block some shots, not care about fouls. Knock down a couple jumpers and play like 10 minutes a game from the 4 spot. He's having to play the 5 spot. Like you said, it's not his fault. It's not. He's being put. A coach wants to put his guys in like great coaches put their players in situations for them to succeed. And Bill Self's usually great at that. But right now, he can't put Mitch Lightfoot in situations to succeed because he has to play him at the 5. Like that's where he has to play him. And that's not where the guy is best suited to play. He's a spot 4 man who, maybe later in his career can play heavier minutes. But right now where he is, he should be trying to come out, block shots, and not care about fouls. But he has to, and it's kind of it's really sucks for the kid. And it's kind of unfair for him because he's really not playing that poorly in the way that he should play.
Yeah, no, he's not a 5. I mean, that's evident. The kid's 6'8", 210, listed.
Maybe 6. Is he really 6'8"? That's another, not sure that's accurate.
Well, I mean,
he's 6'8". He's just barely 6'8". So, he's so even 6'8's undersized to play the 5. But, he might be more like 6'6", 6'7". So,
well,
it's rough for Mitch Lightfoot.
Just as a comparison, Svi is 6'8", 205, listed. I mean,
he's not 6'8" either.
I know, but you understand what I'm saying. They're basically within the same
similar size.
They're similar size, and again, when you're talking about block rate, I mean, Mitch Lightfoot, his block rate is double Udoka's. So I mean, in that aspect, I know he's fouled too much, and Bill Self and staff have tried to work on him with that. But you said exactly right. He's not a 5. He'll never be a 5. And it reminds me of last year. You remember with what happened with KU and Carlton Bragg. I mean, Carlton Bragg came to KU, McDonald's All-American as a 4, and then when KU went to small ball and Josh Jackson got put in that small ball 4 spot, KU needed a backup 5 to Landon Lucas, and that kind of became Carlton Bragg's role, and it really just didn't suit him that well. I mean, he added weight, he added size, but that just wasn't who he was, and again, at the end of the season, he transferred. You kind of see a similar thing with Mitch Lightfoot this year, which is he's doing his best to plug the hole that KU has left for him, but that's not the best position for him to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good example. So, I better pray that one of those big. And if Preston comes in and he has to play some backup 5, and we could be kind of having a similar conversation later this year. Maybe he's best suited to play the 4, but he at least has the size to be more of a stopgap there.
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk about one of your boys real quick, too, here, since you have so many on the team. You know, there's Svizis, there's everyone,
Yeah, here we go.
basically. Yeah, but Marcus Garrett has kind of had minutes limited lately. Have you seen anything from him? I know the Arizona State game, he did not play much, and it seems like his leash has gotten a little bit shorter. I guess you expect this from a freshman, but what do you think about Marcus Garrett and the prospects for him the rest of the year?
I think he's struggling to kind of find his identity offensively. I think defensively he's still been a weapon, and that might get him when they do get more bigs. It might make it easier for him because there's maybe he has somebody to throw it into. When I think he's trying to fit into how everybody else plays right now, and hit the perimeter shots and stuff like that. And he's just not a very good shooter at this point in his development. And he probably shouldn't be taking those threes. He should probably be looking to drive more. So I think he's kind of going through that he's hit a little bit of a freshman wall where it's like, okay, how do I play? How do I impact the game in the limited minutes I get? And it can really get in the kid's head and make it difficult to play in those scenarios. So yeah, he needs to just kind of figure out how he can play and succeed better. And right now he's struggling to find that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And the only problem with the threes, and I know I talked to you about this during the game, is that the ones he was getting were so wide open. And so, you don't have to be a.
But when you can't hit, if you don't have confidence to hit them, even though you're open, you shouldn't always take them.
Exactly.
And I just don't think he's that. What's his percentage so far in the year? I know he's hit a couple, but you can watch him in warm-ups. He's not a great shooter yet. He kind of like Travis Relaford. Like Travis Relaford was not a good shooter early in his career, but he got it eventually. That could be the case for Marcus Garrett, but right now he should be looking to slash more, where maybe he can be that slasher that they need, because they need more slashers, and he's shown an ability to do that and get in the paint and finish, and that's what I think he needs to be concentrating on. It's like Josh Jackson we talked about last year when he was struggling to shoot the ball. Even though guys are off you, sometimes that makes it easier to drive because you get a running start. So that's kind of, if I'm him, that's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to get in the lane, distribute, get to the rim, and finish, and not worry about shooting the three-pointer.
He's 4 for 16 on the year. He's missed his last 5. But, again, it is kind of what do you do in this situation sort of deal. I think mostly he's accepted his role pretty well, and where KU needs him is just defensively and giving those other guys a break. And so he didn't have a great defensive game against Arizona State, not as active as he normally was, but you could definitely still see that down the line for him because he got major minutes early, and the defense for KU just typically looks better when he's in. You know what I mean? Like he creates things. He's quick to slide. He can create deflections. He seems to be up on guys, and I think KU loses some of its defensive juice when he's not in there. So maybe that could be something for him moving forward, even if the offense doesn't come, kind of helping KU's defense. Because let's be honest, the last 2 games, KU's defense has looked sort of dead.
They need defensive energy. You're absolutely right. They looked flat in both early on against Arizona State. They were flying around. They were playing how they needed to play, but whether it's a fatigue thing or what, they just get tired and don't play with energy. And they're a team that doesn't have like these great defensive weapons other than Garrett. So you just have to play with max energy, and I don't think you've seen that in these last 2 games. I think they've gotten kind of flat, and they're capable of guarding when they play with great energy, and you're just not seeing that right now. Some of it probably does come down to the numbers.
All right, CJ, I'm going to wrap it up with this so you can continue on to Lincoln, but Sam kind of tackled this topic in his article yesterday in his column. He says every year there's a freak out for KU basketball. Usually happens in January. This year it's in December. Every year Bill Self comes out of it fine. Every year KU wins the Big 12. The freak out meter, 1 to 10. What level do you think KU fans should be at with this team after 2 consecutive losses, 1 at Sprint Center, 1 at Allen Fieldhouse?
It would be a lot easier to answer this question if I knew what what's going to happen with Preston and Silvio De Sousa. Just because those are so up in the air, and you don't know that there's a scenario where you could absolutely end up with neither one, right? Like that's a possibility.
It's a possibility.
So I would say the freakout meter is probably like around a 6 or 7.
Okay.
Where would you put it? 7 probably?
Yeah, It's tough for me because, like, the logical, rational side of me wants to look at these numbers and say, hey, KU's not doing as bad as many people think. You know, I mean, if you look at it,
And also say Bill self.
exactly. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at BPI the other day, and the last time I checked, KU was number 2. And listen, I know it's some of these big wins were against opponents that were kind of overmatched at Allen Fieldhouse, but like nobody else does that. You know, you don't win those games by 30, 40, 50 against teams like Oakland and Toledo. I mean, that's something other teams in the nation haven't done. But part of me wonders too. I think I'm with you, CJ. I think a lot of KU's problems, most of KU's problems, could be solved with depth. I think if this team plays defensively with more energy and gets after teams, which they have to do because they're playing small, that team is a great team and can be a great team. But it's hard to do that when Devontae Graham is playing 40 minutes, 39 minutes. Like, it's not sustainable, and that will wear those guys down the entire season. So I think the problem that needs to be solved can be solved, but it's not a sure thing that it is going to be solved. So I'm with you. It's almost like you don't know where to put it because this is just such unfamiliar territory for Bill Self. Other than, I mean, when has he been this not deep with the roster? 2012? I mean, I would even think that team was more deep than this one, right?
Yeah, that team was more deep. If he wins the Big 12 with the roster the way it's currently constructed, with not getting those 2 other big guys, I know he's already in the Hall of Fame. Put him in like another level of the Hall of Fame because it's going to be really, really. If he wins with, it will be now 8 scholarship players, but really one true big. I mean, for being honest, like really one true big man is what they got right now.
And
if he wins the Big 12 with that, it would be put the dude on another level of the Hall of Fame. So
I say, can
we'll
you
see.
Can they permanently put his photo like above or below James Naismith? Could that be it?
Yeah, something like that. But it's gonna be a challenge. But you know, if they get bodies, we're gonna have to totally rethink how we see this team and wait 5, 6, 7 games with that group before we can really judge them. So it's hard to judge them right now because you don't know what the roster is going to look like. But if this is the way the roster is constructed, the margin for error is so small, and in conference games, they're going to probably drop more conference games than you're used to seeing them drop. Now, I do think the league at the top is not as strong as it's been in some other years, so that helps. I think the league is also really deep, and there's just about, considering KU lost to Washington, it's hard to say that there's like any gimme wins this year because even though Oklahoma State and Iowa State are down, I haven't had a chance to really watch Iowa State closely, but I watched Oklahoma State against Wichita State last week, and they're not good, but they're not terrible. Like they've got enough athletes, enough guys that they can get you in Stillwater. So it's going to be a tough year in that regard if you got the small numbers just because the league is so deep.
Yeah, Oklahoma State 56th in Ken Palm, Iowa State 64th, and just as a reminder, Washington right now ranks 128th, and that game was at Sprint Center. So I think when you're talking about, hey, you can't mark down anything as a win on the road, you obviously can't really even mark it down as a win at home if KU's going to perform like it did at the Sprint Center. I know Sprint Center is not Allen Fieldhouse, but KU just dropped a game there as well. Big 12 by far the top Ken Pomeroy conference, but I agree with your point, which is there have been some years, think back to the KU-Texas years where like, okay, I can definitely foresee Texas winning this thing because Texas has XYZ players and a great whatever. With this year, it's more like I could see one of those teams going on a nice run and knocking off KU, but I don't know which one it is. But the fact that there are a West Virginia and a Texas Tech and a TCU and a Baylor and an Oklahoma and a Texas, you probably could I could foresee a scenario any of those teams win the Big 12, right? I mean, the fact that there's 5 of them makes it kind of a dangerous scenario where you could say, hey, I'm not sure that one of those 5 teams is necessarily the best team in the conference, but I could see them going on a nice little run, win a few close games, and winning the conference. So it'll be a challenge for KU this year, but it's a challenge the last 13 years, and Bill Self always finds a way. So we'll see if he can do the same thing this year. What would you say, CJ? Is it going to be 14 for Kansas?
I mean, I'm never going to bet against Bill Self. So I'll still say there's still going to be my pick. But, man, if they don't get at least one of those two guys, I would seriously consider some other teams. So we'll see.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. Let CJ get up to Lincoln. CJ, any final comments? Any places I need to eat in Lincoln to let me know about?
I'll have a better report for you after I spend a day or so there. So I've only been to Lincoln. I think I've only been one other time. How about you? How many trips did you make up during the old Big 12 days?
Yeah, a few. I actually even got to watch a KU.
Back when the Big 12 had 12 teams. Wasn't that wild?
Yeah, craziness. I know.
Yeah, son, when I was younger, the Big 12 actually had 12 teams, believe it or not.
And the Big 10 had 10. Amazing. Went up. There was a KU football game up there at Memorial Stadium in Nebraska. So it was pretty cool that before the Big 12 did dissolve, I was able to get a road football game at both A&M and Nebraska, which are kind of two of the great sites to play. But yeah, some basketball games at the Devaney Center too. So this will be a new experience at the new arena they have up there. But I can only imagine those fans.
Pinnacle, right?
Yeah, the fans are going to be fired up to face Kansas. Haven't been able to do it at home in a while.
The watering hole, if I remember right, has some pretty dang good wings.
Okay, I'll remember.
And that's all I remember right now. So we'll see. I'm meeting with Timmy Miles today. Hopefully he has some suggestions.
Well, the only thing with Tim Miles, you have to bring up Ken Pomeroy. I know he's a big fan just like me, so be sure to bring up the name when you're with him.
Oh, great. All right, well, I'll bring it up. I'll see if he gushes like you do.
It's a talking point. Come on, CJ, I'm trying to help you out.
I appreciate the help, Jesse. They're a program that's in an interesting spot. They could definitely use the momentum from a win against Kansas. And even though Nebraska hasn't been great in recent years, that building is still usually really juiced, and I imagine it's going to be rocking on Saturday. So Nebraska is almost a little bit like a sleeping giant, just because the interest is there. And they have a really, really good facilities, and they really, really support their team. So, at some point, I think Nebraska here in the next 5 or so years you could look at them in a different way than what you do right now. So, and they're getting KU at the right time. We'll see. But like I said, I think it's a similar kind of talent level makeup as Washington. But it could be a pretty good game.
Yep, they definitely got great fans. There's no question about it. We're going to wrap up the Sports Beat KC podcast. For CJ, this is Jesse. Be sure to tune in for another episode next week.
SeatGeek is the easiest way to find the best deals on tickets to pretty much any live event. Concerts, sports, theater, comedy, whatever you want. Download the SeatGeek app today and enter promo code SEATS to save $20 on your first purchase.